Alright, it's time to review my wife's new perfume that I got for her because that's what I'm buying so often lately. This is from Vera Wang, picked up at Burlington Coat Factory for $30 for 100 ml, so it's a very inexpensive perfume. And I didn't get it just because it's cheap. I also got it because the name Wang is in the designer's name and I'm immature. But overall, this is a very decently priced old fragrance relative to some of the new stuff out there. This one was from '06, so this is not a super new, fresh fragrance, although it does have some fresh aspects to it. And it is kind of characterized by a lot of what women's fragrances were in the late 90s and early aughts, which is a lot of white florals and a lot of fruitiness, followed by usually some kind of vanilla on the dry down. That's what you kind of get here. I'll give the specific notes right now, just so you have them. On the top note, you get water lily, apricot, apple, mandarin orange, middle notes of dark chocolate, guava, tiara flower, tuberose, and on the base notes, you get vanilla, amber, and some woodsy notes. Now, out of all of those, one, I'll go ahead and point out the atomizer is actually pretty darn good on this. That's pretty decent. The price point, $30 for 100 ml, pretty good. Longevity is okay depending on what your activity level is. If you're being more active, obviously it fades quicker. But the primary note that lasts beyond the initial burst of fresh kind of fruity smells is going to be that vanilla. Projection isn't super strong. You're not going to fill a room with this thing unless you really are just spraying it like a madman or madwoman all over the place. It's more, I would almost say it's a hair above skin level after a while. You can smell it on somebody if they did a good job of spraying them down on pulse points, but as far as like if you walk into a room or you walk by somebody, there's not gonna be a wake of the fragrance coming behind you. Atomizer, decent. Nothing really to write home about, but does the job. Now, jumping into the actual notes and the fragrances that really do kind of pop and do their job, you do get the initial burst of apple and mandarin orange and that water lily, just a little bit. You get a little bit of that floral in there in the opening. Very fresh, very nice, very 90s, 2000s kind of thing going on there. On the middle notes, they list out dark chocolate, guava, tiara flower, and tuberose. I get the white florals, and I get a little bit of the chocolate. I don't get the guava. On my nose, I'm not smelling guava. Guava to me is always a very, almost super syrupy, sugar sweet kind of fruit smell. I don't get that from this. But the real story here is on the dry down, that amber mixed with the vanilla with this just a hair of kind of woody notes in there to kind of make it have a little bit of sharpness at the edge, make it very noticeable. That's what you kind of end up with. And that's what you're primarily going to have. I'm going to say those opening notes probably disappear within 10 to 12 minutes. I mean, I couldn't smell them on my skin or on paper after a little while. Normally on paper, it lasts a little bit longer. But now, for a young woman's fragrance, and that's who this is really kind of designed for, with names like Princess, the purple, the heart, the kind of tacky bottle, all that fun stuff. This is kind of designed for a younger woman. This would be perfectly fine for anyone high school all the way through age 50. That's really kind of the range on it. It's just whether or not you want all those florals in there. So if you're someone who's like, ugh, I don't like all the florals, don't get this one. If you're okay with florals, understand that they're not overstated. It's not like you're getting like a powdery white floral mess thrown in your face. It's accompanied by a bunch of other fragrances, a bunch of accords, especially vanilla, because that dry down is very vanilla forward. You're not going to get a whole lot of floral on the dry down. You get a little bit kind of left over, that little almost like powderiness from the white florals, but it really doesn't overpower anything else. So it's really, I would really call this fragrance heavy on vanilla, just because that dry down happens so quickly and it is so vanilla forward. Now that dry down lasts a while. So if you spray yourself 2-3 sprays, you're going to smell like vanilla for the rest of the day. And again, you're not going to project. It's not going to push out to everybody. But someone sitting next to you will be able to smell it, especially if you put it on your wrists and you're moving a lot. So if you're looking to make sure you smell nice to someone next to you, this is probably a good option. There's nothing really offensive in the whole batch. And for the price point of $30 for 100 mils, and it's designer brand, all that fun stuff, and the cool bottle and everything else, it makes a great item, great little gift, great option for somebody who wants a youthful-ish scent that isn't necessarily quite as heavy on like things like citruses and everything else. The way modern, I'm gonna say, really everything post 2020 in the women's fragrance world tends to be very heavy on those youthful, fruity, cherry, sugary kind of smells. You get a little bit of that here, but it gets offset by the white florals as well as the dry down to vanilla. Overall, really nice fragrance. Does the job well. No real complaints to it unless you're someone who's not a huge fan of florals in general.